God of War Ragnarok is here and it is playable on the Steam Deck. I'm very surprised this isn't verified already, but I can also kind of see why if it's been fully tested the way I have. Looking at the initial performance, you can see that we are getting what looks like a very stable 50 plus frames per second. However, this is Sony and you can't take the first levels for granted. We do dip down into the 40s for the most part, but beyond that first level, as there seems to be a lot of magic going on here, or just they have got very good efficient snow effects, we do start tanking effect. However, it does still push over 30 for the most part, so I am very surprised this hasn't been verified ahead of its release, but I can definitely see this being playable, or if not even verified, very soon. Now, I have had a couple of other issues, but before I go into that, let's have a look at the settings. So this does have AMD FSR 3.1 and it does look absolutely phenomenal with that quality version. I did also do a custom version with medium textures and models, turn the film grain and motion blur off as well. Although I think for more stability, you're probably going to just keep this on low in future or bump that FSR down to balanced. It does perform very well though. As you'll see here, in the earlier stages, we do push 50 frames per second, but as soon as we get to the dwarf realm, we start pushing those boundaries a little bit more. On the OLED screen though, these scenes are absolutely beautiful. But as you can see, we are all over the place on the frames per second. 30 frames per second here and there, bouncing between 30 and 50. And in some scenes where it doesn't even make sense for the frame rate to dip, we are getting some pretty hefty dips down into the low 30s. Now a little bit further into this level, it actually dips under 30. But not before going up to 70 plus frames per second, so there definitely is something going on with the frame pacing here. As climbing up this section, I know that we've only really got sky and a bit of wood, but we hit 75 frames per second, and as soon as we come over the lip and get some of the terrain in the distance, we are now down to 28 frames per second. And even very briefly down to 24. Now it does only last for a second and then we're back up into the 30s and 40s. So I'm not sure if this has got something to do with shader caching. Oh yeah, by the way, the shader caching on load of this is absolutely insane. It took a good 10 to 15 minutes, even though you can play through the first section with that shaders building as well. It is a little bit annoying. Randomly, I also had two other issues. The very first time I launched this, the controller just did not work, even though it was showing the controller inputs. So I did have to restart it and then they worked fine. But later on in the game, it did happen again while I was in one of the menus. And also when I got to the initial bear fight, the FMV just didn't play properly. It skipped all over the place and then my audio was out of sync until I was able to restart it. So maybe there are a couple of underlying issues here, especially as we've only recently got a stable update, but with the current stable release as well as the default Proton, I fully expect a patch soon to stabilize some of these performance issues. Definitely one of the better ports that we've seen recently and really puts Final Fantasy 16 to shame, so hopefully we see some more updates and makes it even smoother. But for the best part, I would keep that FSR 3.1 quality and make sure we cap the frame rate on the Steam Deck to 30 and you'll have a perfectly stable experience. Let us know in the comments below if you're diving into Ragnarok. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.